Season one of The Boys poked a lot of fun at the MCU and, sort of the existence of the comic book films. And this episode did that a lot because, they're shooting Dawn of the Seven. And there were two references. I'm going to go into both of them and get your guys' thoughts. The first being the direct reference to the Justice League and, Whedon's rewrites. Homelander says that. Which, and that situation is getting crazier and crazier as the days go on as far as what took place on that set and, the controversies. And then there was a moment where all the women come together, and girls get it done. And to me, it felt like the reference to Endgame. There's, the action sequence where the women come together. So I don't know if they were poking fun at these things or exactly the reason they put them in there. But, the show is sort of parodied, not just the comic book genre, but the films and the MCU and, the DCEU as well. But did y'all catch those, or did you see anything else that I missed, or, what did you think of them?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The Girls Get It Done campaign, the whole Joss Whedon thing. I thought the Joss Whedon thing was funny, and I don't think that you can make fun of the Girls Get It Done thing and have it accurately portray how ham-fisted it was done by Marvel in Endgame. Whether anybody disagrees with me or not, you take all these unrelated characters in that scene and suddenly have them pose and stand together. So it would be hard. I'm just saying it would be hard for the show to properly parody that, but I guess they're more parodying it behind the scenes with the whole corporate movement behind it in the show.
I thought the best part was talking about hamming it up with Marvel and then the Girls Get It Done. To me, those are both Joss Whedon things. So I think that they were just poking fun at just Joss Whedon, not necessarily, MCU. It might have just been a Josh Whedon stab. But he didn't direct the last.
He
one.
didn't do. Yeah, he didn't.
Yeah, I was about to say he didn't write that. He would have wrote that better, and it would have made sense. It would have been with characters that it made sense for.
It would have been with some redheaded chick that he talked about for 6 days, and like every little quip would have been a very cleverly contrived.
Maybe, but it would have made sense.
It wouldn't have been.
It would have. Somebody who doesn't like Joss Whedon. Welcome.
It's funny though.
Okay.
We talk about Joss Whedon. I've watched a lot of his stuff. Like, has anybody else watched Dollhouse?
No,
I haven't.
I have.
That's the only thing.
What I'm saying is that, like, I've watched a lot of his shit, and it's all very. He has a style.
He has a style. There's no denying that. And like I said earlier, there's a lot of. And we'll see what comes out. They're saying that he may be unprofessional on set. We don't know what happened. I mean, that story's running. We're not here to talk about that. As more comes out, we'll see. But I do like his older works. I enjoy Buffy. I enjoy his comics that he wrote. But
I don't dislike the comics. I dislike his live action.
Astonishing X-Men.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I don't dislike his comics. I felt his live action stuff is very hokey, like, which translates good to comic type stuff normally, but I just didn't care for it as much.
But we're Pulp Mythos. I'm Brian, here with Larry and Spencer, who doesn't like Joss Whedon, and we're going to be talking about The Boys season 2, episode 5. We've only 3 left. We've only got 3 left. We're almost through this. This was a great episode. I think maybe the best of the season, or definitely one of the best of the season so far. A lot of cool things going on. We open, as I said, they're shooting Dawn of the Seven, which sort of goes throughout the entire episode. A lot of storylines connecting with that shoot, and one of which Homelander discovers that there is a viral video of him killing a civilian. He comes to kill somebody. He kills a civilian. He didn't mean to, but at the same time, he didn't care that he did it. He looks down on people, they're beneath him, and he takes off. It goes viral. People are freaking out. There's, movement against him. And that sort of is his storyline throughout the episode. What did you guys think when you initially saw that scene, and where did you think it was going to go?
It went pretty much how I thought it was
Same
going to
here.
go. I was trying to think of a way because they've alluded to, Stormfront trying to get him on her side, like kind of, team up almost. So when this happened, I was just like, well, this is the way for them to get, work together. And it was brilliantly done. There's sometimes where you can kind of see what's going to happen, but the journey to get there is kind of the adventure. And the journey this episode was amazing. It was very well done. It was over the top. There was parts of it that were crazy, but that's kind of what the show has done. And they've set that precedent. And I thought that they did a great job telling that story.
Yeah. And I think, like Spencer said, it was a little predictable. But the question is, especially given what we saw in season 1, he's being played, of course. But as we've seen in the past, typically when people play Homelander, he's aware of it to some degree, or he'll gain some awareness of it. So
he don't like it.
He doesn't like it. So is he playing along from now? Are we going to, towards the end of this season, see what other machinations he's been set up? Because he's not as dumb or as gullible as he's acted in this episode. And I guess he may be using the fact that Stormfront doesn't know him the way that the others do, that they, because they kind of fear how smartly he goes about things, because he is a full-on sociopath. She doesn't know him like that, though. So I think Stormfront might be in for some surprises towards the end of this season.
The protest scene, well, it was a great scene because, there was so much going on when you really break it down. There's this protest. There's is it a mayor, a congresswoman? I can't. Political
congresswoman.
Congresswoman.
Yeah, I thought it said something
and
about
she's, because she was demanding, investigations into Vought, and she's got a rally. Everybody, is there. They're angry with Homelander, and Homelander shows up. Go ahead.
Well, I just want to say we've seen a lot of her throughout the season. You've seen her on screens criticizing Vought and the Seven. So clearly, there's going to be a storyline with her that's going to play out.
Yeah, I think that's the first time we saw her in person.
Yes.
Like you said, I think I've seen her in the background several times when they're like news report, and then they show her face and stuff, and they show her. About Vought.
Whenever Vought is being criticized, it's always this congresswoman being interviewed. So something's going to happen with that.
Well, when Homelander shows up, there's a moment where everybody's sort of quiet, almost a fear for a second.
Rightfully so.
And rightfully so. And he's saying his classic, lines, what he usually says. And then the crowd turns on him and, starts chanting him down because, they feel that they're mad, they're against him. But if you notice, she was scared still.
Yeah.
And because she knows what I think they don't know, is that at any time, at any place, if Homelander wanted to, he could kill everyone and rule everything. And there's nothing anyone could do to stop him. And of course, it plays out a fantasy in his mind where he, decimates, kills everyone. But you're right. I do think we'll see more of her because there was that moment. And it makes me wonder how Congress or how their government sees Homelander, themselves. Is there a fear?
Well, here's my question here, because just piecing some dots together. We've seen her, emerge in the series and her in the background, just as Stormfront is added to the Seven. Is this a coordinated effort? Is she also in Stormfront's pocket? Because Stormfront mentioned that Homelander has more fans and everything, and he's got fans, but she's got soldiers. Are they working towards the same goal, essentially?
That would make sense, too, because, like you said, when she saw Homelander show up, she was terrified, thinking that she was probably safe because Stormfront made her safe.
Yeah.
And now, Homelander shows up and she's like, oh, shit. Because, we know that the amount of the abilities that he has, and for him to kill a civilian, and because she saw that video too, the congresswoman did, she saw that video and he's just like, fuck it, and just leaves. So she knows in him that he's capable of that. And I'm sure that even if she's not working with Stormfront, which I think that's a pretty good theory, Larry, I think that she might be, but I think that knowing that, I think that that's just a shitstorm waiting to happen. That's going to be crazy to see who all is working with who.
Absolutely, because it's the sort of thing where we know that certain government officials are briefed on VOT's activities. That there's been a coordinated effort for a while now, like before anybody knew about the Compound V. They've been working with the government. The government is aware of a certain amount of the scope of what they do. So, depending on how long this character's been in Congress, she may have known for a while everything that's going on, and she hasn't said a thing. She didn't leak anything. She didn't, hint that she was against them until just now, and all of a sudden this season she's all over the news. So it may very well may be a coordinated effort,
and it leads to him going to Stormfront and sort of
playing into her hand. Yeah,
because which was another interesting scene. Him basically realizing his way of doing things isn't going to work anymore. How do you do things in the whole social media campaign? And misinformation that she puts out, which works, and I'm not getting political, but we know how that shit goes in the real world.
Yeah.
But even the image where it showed the actual the civilian dead, and circles in, it's like Photoshop, fake news, and just they put it out a thing, and it works. He comes back later and like, hey, I'm up 5 points, and people are calling me heroic and this and that. So he is now siding with her as a result of everything that played out. So the theory that this is all a coordinated thing, I think there's some possibility to that.
Well, and you go back to like even leaving U.S. politics out of it. When you talk about the internet, the internet's not brand new. This isn't a 2016 revelation, but we're being made more and more aware of how much power the internet has, whether it's through social change, through anything. So to see it being used within this show, which probably wasn't used in the comics, the comics were a little bit, I mean, they're not old by any means, but
the Stormfront stuff, they're going in very different direction.
Well, right. I think they just updated. Like, I don't know what the end game's going to be, but that's more of an updated kind of thing that's going on. And I think it's really cool to kind of see how technology and things like that are changing our society, and they are.
Yeah, because we didn't have big coordinated social media campaigns like that back in the days when these comics were written, or at least it wasn't as organized as it is now. So it is a sort of a modernization of what's happened in the comics.
Stormfront and Starlight confront each other, and I thought it was sort of surprising because they both basically say, hey, I know all your secrets, hey, I know all your secrets.
Mm-hmm.
And it leaves them both saying, well, okay, we'll just we checkmate. We'll stand back and we'll see how this plays out. But yeah, they both expose each other. I thought that, that was one of those moments that usually doesn't happen in this kind of entertainment where you're like, oh shit, well, the secrets are out. Now what happens? So that scene caught me off guard. What did y'all think about that?
I think it's helpful to do it that early because now that they already both know, they already know that the other one knows, you can kind of move forward with the plot instead of that being kind of a hindrance to the plot.
Yeah.
I think that, doing it this early helps the last 3 episodes kind of reveal some other shit instead of spending 2 more episodes and trying to figure out who knows what.
Well, yeah, and I think it again plays into what Stormfront is trying to do. Like she may have known this for a little while, and she's got networks of people that she's built, to sort of spy on everybody and play everybody. And part of the reason she hasn't exposed her is the fact that she thinks to some degree she can use it because her agenda may actually be to take down Vought because she's worked for them for a while and she's no longer their it girl. And, she may be trying to get some sort of measure of revenge here. So she may think, I can use this. I don't know why she's doing this. I don't know why she leaked this information because she doesn't know about her. She doesn't know that she's working with the boy. She just knows that she leaked this information.
Yeah, I don't think that she knows why she did it yet.
She just knows she did it.
She knows that she did it. But I also think that when you talk about Stormfront, I don't know what her end game is. I don't know that it's about taking down Vought. I think that she's not necessarily being a puppet, but I think she's being used by somebody. And I know we've already talked about how her story is different in the comics a little bit, but I think that in the show, I think that somebody's kind of pulling her strings. Like somebody's behind the scenes kind of trying to manipulate some things. And I think that she's the key cog in that wheel.
Yeah, and I think whatever her goal is, she finds keeping this secret for Starlight to be useful. That she may be able to play her in the future, that she may be able to sort of use this information to get other things done, because now she has this relationship with I'm forgetting our main guy's name at the moment. Homelander. Yeah. Now she has this relationship with Homelander, so she could use that, she could leverage that, and she can say like, well, yeah, how about you do this thing for me? I really need you to get this information, or I really need you to do this thing, or I really need you to comply with this. And Starlight could go, well, why the hell should I work with you? I hate you. I hate everything you're about. It's like, well, I could tell Homelander about all these things you've been doing, and then what happens to you? I really don't want to do that, but I could. That's a thing she can leverage against her or use to her advantage.
Frenchie spends the episode. They have him and Kimiko have a tiny little storyline, but my God, it has the most violent, gory, one of the goriest things they've ever done in the show. He's tracking her, and he discovers that she's doing hits. Basically, she's taking contracts, and they have a little falling out once he figures this out. And he likes her, and she's frustrated with the fact that her brother got killed. But she rips a guy's face off, and I mean, they show it. It was hell of an effect. It was. I mean, when they did it, it's the kind of thing that's so shocking you start laughing. You're just like, holy shit. Great sequence, interesting. Their storyline has been going back and forth this whole season. Where do you think it's going to go? And yeah, what did you think of that? Her brutally killing all those guys.
Yeah, that was intense.
I loved that it started with his ear. Like she just grabbed right behind his ear, and then it was almost like demasking him, because like where it went was right across like his lower face. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, that was crazy. That scene was rough, and honestly, I don't know where to. Well, I guess she's on a path of self-destruction to some degree, because I don't see where you go from that after you do all these hits and everything. And if that gets revealed, it doesn't matter if the boys solve their problems and they all get to go back to their previous roles. Butcher, if Butcher meets his role and he gets to be back with it, I don't think Butcher will ever go back to normal. But if MM gets to go back to his family, and Frenchie gets to live a normal life, and Huey gets to go back to working in a department store or whatever it is he wants to do, I don't think things can go back to normal for Kimiko. I think by the end of this series, potentially, Kimiko is probably going to be dead, or there's going to be like some great sacrifice there, because she's crossing that line. And typically in shows like this, where you cross a line like that, where she just doesn't care, she's just making money to survive, and she's doing some of the most vile things she can do to survive, and for no reason. There's no redeeming this character. Or it may be the sort of thing where she sees that maybe she's done what's been done to her to someone else just for money. That may be where we're going with this.
Well, we talk about redeemable. She's not doing this to like innocent people. She didn't rip off some like teenager's face walking down the street. It was like a whole gang of people. They weren't good people who she attacked. So I disagree that her story's not redeemable, but I think her and Frenchie are tied together. Whether, like you said, whether it's her untimely undoing, I don't think that it matters which direction they go, but I think her and Frenchie are.
Well, yeah, I think Frenchie will forgive her, but I think some of the things she's doing will be unforgivable, because given the people that Frenchie hangs out with, it kind of spells out that Frenchie's probably got a pretty messed up past in the first place. So Frenchie might, but it may be the sort of thing where it's like there's no chance for her to live a normal life after all is said and done. And we don't necessarily know that she's taking out hits for the worst of the worst, that they're necessarily bad people, because she's just getting handed an envelope with names. So who these hits are for, she may be working for some truly horrible people. She may be.
Well, I think it's both.
She may be indirectly working for Vought, if anything, for all she knows.
Well, I think she's working for horrible people, but she's just basically kind of like in the Blacklist, where Raymond Reddington is having basically the FBI take out his competition. I think that's what they're doing with Kimiko, is that this girl's using her to basically take out their competition. Doesn't mean that. I mean,
she basically says that.
Yeah.
If you listen to what she's saying, who hired them, and I guess they were killing Russians, and I think it's gang warfare type thing, take out our opponents.
And I think that Frenchie is going to be the key to either Kimiko redeeming herself, as far as kind of walking back off that ledge, or it's going to be the opposite, and he's going to be the reason that she goes the rest of the way. And his story is going to unfold, whether it's, trying to exact revenge for her or take on her mantle where he goes after Stormfront. Like, I think that their stories are very much intertwined.
And I think I think she'll make a turn once she sees the cost of what she's doing, that these people have families as well. And maybe she'll wind up orphaning some kids the way that her and her brother were orphaned, and that'll affect her.
Yeah, she may see the ramifications of what she did.
Right.
So we're introduced to Brave Maeve, the marketing campaign for Queen Maeve. Homelander, from the last episode and this episode, has just literally been effing with her, torturing her. He found out she was, she's actually bi. They say that in this, and yet they want to paint her as, lesbian, and they have a whole marketing strategy as to why they're, gender roles. And, it's one of those, she doesn't want any of this. He outed her. That's her ex-girlfriend, they're together, but they were sort of on the splits. And yet now she's a part of this, and she doesn't have a choice.
Right.
All this is purely to mess with Maeve. Homelander, it's a power play, and he's forcing it on her. And he dances around it, but basically tells her this is what it's gonna be if you want everyone to be safe. Like, he sort of said, if you read in between the lines of what he's saying, and she realizes that, and it's just another power trip for Homelander at this point.
The point where he tells her, it's like, oh, you're in love, and that's beautiful, and I'd never take that away from you.
Yes.
That was him saying, this will never not be you.
Yes.
You're going to be this image that I want you to be, and you're going to fit a narrative that serves the purpose I want it to serve.
Writing it into the film, she doesn't want that, but they're doing it anyways. All that stuff.
My favorite part of that whole sequence, as fucked up as it was when the writers were talking about Ellen and Portia. That shit made me laugh so hard.
Well, yeah, their whole way of looking at it is from a corporate lens.
How can we sell this? What's the most marketable way to sell this is how they're looking at it. And Homelander, for him, it's less that and more payback than anything.
Oh yeah, he doesn't give a shit about whether or not it sells. He's doing it to fuck with her.
And the fact that, we learn a new thing. Maeve at the end tells Alana or Elena, we're gonna get him. We're gonna get that asshole. And she ends up going to the Deep. The Deep has a few little scenes, nothing really worth talking about. But he's married now. It's all in the press.
I don't know. I think they're all worth talking about. They're funny as shit.
It's part of the church. Yeah, I think they're going somewhere with it. I hope they're going somewhere with it, because at this point it's like I hope there's a end vision for what they're doing with the Deep, but we'll see. But clearly it ties into Maeve now and Homelander, because Maeve says, we're going to get Homelander, and then she goes to talk to the Deep and basically is trying to recruit him into some plan she's coming up with to take down Homelander. Do y'all have any idea what that even could possibly be? Because at this moment, I don't.
I
I
have
have a theory.
same
You
here.
can go first, Larry.
All right.
Well,
So
my
I can
theory
disagree
is
with you.
that it's that she's potentially aiming for, and this is a rough move here because, as we pointed out earlier, he could potentially kill them all. But I think she's going for a smear campaign, if anything. Because why go for the Deep first if it's not going to be that? He could, in a way that the Deep could say and vouch for if she's like, yeah, Homelander is forcing us into these scenarios. He encourages this. This is the type of work environment that all these problems you've seen with the Deep. She may even approach, what's the speedster's name? I'm trying to remember the speedster's name right now. A-Train. Yeah, she may even approach A-Train and say that, yeah, I used Compound V as a drug in order to live up to Homelander standards. He forced me to do that. So I think Maeve is going for a smear campaign. Because if she was going for power, if she was going to actively attack him, she wouldn't go for the Deep because the Deep would get slaughtered instantly.
Yeah. What's your theory, Spencer?
I don't think that Larry's wrong with that. So surprisingly enough, I'm like, yeah, that's probably right. However, I think that for the longevity of the show, I don't know what their intent is. So if their intent is to just follow the comics, they only got, maybe a couple seasons left that they can do as far as content. Now, if they start going off the rails and going a different direction, I think that the church may be the next kind of like bad guy, that they're trying to kind of brainwash some of these soups to get them to do their bidding. So perhaps I think they're setting up for some foreshadowing that the church has got some underhanded shit. It's not just Hollywood and Vought. I think that they're going to play that angle too. So that's the only reason I think that the church is important, is to see that perhaps they're the next bad guys.
Well, yeah, and I think you're right. I think it's going to be this sort of thing where they're going to gain some level of power within the corporation, within shaping their images, because we saw that the church does seem to be working well or at least the way they're reshaping the Deep's image does seem to be working for him in the show. And I think, if Homelander's going to stick around, or if he's not going to go rogue, or if they're not going to split from them in any way, I think he'll play it up where, he'll act the way he typically does, and he'll maybe cry on camera, and he's like, "You're right. You're all right. I've done all these horrible things throughout the years. It was Vought. They made me do it. The way this corporation has shaped me my whole life." He's like, and that's why I repented, and I've accepted the Church of the Collective into my heart. And they'll gain some level of corporate power, and he'll use the social media tactics that he's learned from Stormfront to his advantage in that part too. He'll have his army of trolls going on there saying, "Oh, I think we should forgive him. Clearly the guy's changed, and he's been going through all these things to try and reshape who he is as a person and everything."
His 9-year-old army.
I think you're right though about that might be where A-Train's story is headed too. Joining this smear campaign or part of it, because this episode storyline, which I really liked, was because this was touching on Hollywood. They were poking at a lot of things with his storyline. The idea that he's being written out, he's not happy. He submitted his own rewrites. They rejected it. There's been the back and forth, and he basically gets threatened by Ashley. Like, look, this is how it is. The consequences if you don't play ball, and and then he does it in the end. I've said it before, I've always had a fondness for speedsters, so I'm sort of invested in the A-Train story to see where it's going to go. But I would assume it's going to join that storyline, or maybe it goes somewhere completely different. What do y'all think?
I think it's only a matter of time before. I think he's going to be the first casualty as far as the big characters. The initial 7. I think he's going to be the first one that gets. He's going to be the first casualty of war, because I do think that, like you said, he is going to either start the smear campaign or be a vital part of it. And I think that Homelander sees him as not only a liability but expendable. Like I think that as much as he is likes fucking with Maeve, I think that he knows that she's not only powerful but she's important. Same thing with Starlight, but I don't think that he feels like A Train's important at all.
Right.
And he's already established that he doesn't like people with disabilities, and since A Train's heart's fucked up now, he sees that as a liability, and he totally sees him as expendable. So I think that as soon as A Train starts anything, A Train's going to fall down an elevator shaft onto some bullets. It's going to.
Well, yeah, I think he's going to. I think he's going to just basically run A Train to death. Because Homelander's got super speed also. And once he finds out about this smear campaign, he's going to track him down, and A Train's going to go for his go-to as a speedster, and he's going to run like hell. But Homelander's, clearly fast enough to keep up with him, so he's going to be chasing him, and A Train's going to have that final heart attack. But like you said, I think he'll be the first to go. If not him, the Deep, and
yeah,
the Deep. Yeah, he may kill home. In fact, he may kill A Train and the Deep, and he may take that moment to become the face of the Church of the Collective, and that would be great for them, and they would accept that because it's like we don't just have the Deep now; we have Homelander.
Yeah,
we have a reformed
prize.
Superman.
The other storyline outside of the Homelander stuff, the major storyline, I should say, was the Mother's Milk, Huey, and Billy being trapped in Billy's aunt's house while Black Noir is stalking them. And it was really well done. It played throughout the course of the episode. They're in there. You're learning a little, there's a lot to talk about, but you get a little backstory on Billy and his relationship with his brother and how it relates to Huey. You get obviously Black Noir attacking them, setting the traps, showing that none of the explosions, nothing they do even does anything to Black Noir. And then, of course,
cinched his suit a little bit.
That's it. And then the ending of he's going to kill them, and Billy screaming out, "I have evidence on Ryan. It'll leak if I die." And then finding the true revelation of the episode really is Mr. Edgar is controlling Black Noir. Everything he does, all of his orders, being controlled by Mr. Edgar. And he decides that it's a big enough risk not to risk that information getting out, so he spares Billy and his friends and family. Like I said, there's a lot to get to. What do y'all want to talk about as far as that whole storyline?
Well, I think this answers one major question that I think everyone's had since the series has started, which is, why do they fear Mr. Edgar at all? Like, why is everyone worried about his opinion? Why is everybody scared or kind of gulped? Like, even Homelander seems a little worried about Mr. Edgar. Like he postures and he threatens a little bit, but he won't take things too far with Mr. Edgar. And Mr. Edgar is in fact one of the few people that choose him out without being afraid at all. And we kind of got our answer here, because if Mr. Edgar is controlling Black Noir in this way, and I'm sure the rest of the team doesn't even know about it, then does he have other moles? Who else is working for Mr. Edgar directly?
And the fact that it's a camera. Black Noir has a camera built into his suit. Wherever he sees, Edgar sees. Real time.
That's extra crazy because Black Noir not only is super fast, and like when he killed I don't remember the fire, basically was it not Nova? Shit, Brian, we talked about this like last week. The guy who started Marvel Civil War.
Is it
Speedball?
Nova? No, Speedball was the guy that explodes himself.
Oh yeah, that's right. It was.
Is it Nova? It's not Nova.
It's not Nova. It's not Nova.
God,
like
something
bomb related.
Yeah, I had to look it up then, and I forgot it already. I'll look it up. Go ahead and keep going.
When he killed him, that on the order of Mr. Edgar, because I think Black Noir, just showing what he does, which he doesn't really team up with a lot of the other people. He is legitimately Vought's lapdog. And I think that if not everybody knows that, at least Homelander has figured that part out. And I think that, like you said, Larry, and Brian, that's the reason that Homelander's a little bit more hesitant to try and push buttons, because I still think that Homelander feels he's superior to Black Noir, but he knows that he's strong. So it's one of those things where, as strong and narcissistic as he is, if he feels like he might lose, kind of like Floyd Mayweather, how he doesn't want to accept a fight that he knows there's a chance that it might not come out well.
Well, I think he also knows it's like, look, they manufacture the Compound V. They make all these superheroes and things, and they wouldn't make a Superman.
Did you say Compound B before?
I did say B. I was hoping y'all would overlook
B.
but
it's Nitro, by the way. I looked it up.
Nitro, that's
Okay,
right.
I couldn't remember.
Nitro. I think he realizes it's like, look, they wouldn't make you unless they had a contingency to deal with you. So they've probably got a few ways to deal with people like Homelander if they're out of control or not compliant. And maybe they've seen in the past the way they handle a Homelander, because I think we're seeing with Stormfront, with the way she used to be Liberty, and I think we're seeing that they have ways of forcing them out, because she probably, with the way she talks and her attitude and everything, she has a lot in common with Homelander. So I think we see with her that they have a way of dealing with Homelander, because she may have been their first Homelander where there was a bit of an issue and they had to force her out. So she's probably the reason they've made contingencies like Black Noir.
They allude to, and they don't go into detail, but Starlight alludes to the fact that Stormfront's name has changed multiple times. Like, she sort of alludes to the fact that you've had multiple identities outside of even Liberty. So maybe, they've been moving her around for years in different roles, and every time she screws up or does something they don't want, they have to change it, or does something they do want her to do but need to change her identity as a result.
And then they rebrand her.
Yeah, and it's easier back in the day, but obviously with social media, it's different. But obviously now she's learning how to use that.
Well, and that's what I said, I think, our last review, that they gave this whole backstory of Vought, working with Germany during World War II. And I think that she was probably one of their first people. So I think that she has been rebranded God knows how many times. They just, like you said, in the 40s, there's not Twitter. In the 50s, there's not Facebook. There's not, memes and everything else. So how many times has she, like you said, Brian, like done this catastrophic thing, whether it was for somebody or for herself and her own beliefs, that they basically had to start over. They had to be like, oh shit, well, now you're not, Lady Stars and Stripes, you're this. Like, how many times have they changed her name?
The end of the episode is, and if you want to go back to the house stuff, we can, but the end of the episode, the big thing is Homelander, hooking up with Stormfront. We won't go into all the details. It's a very interestingly shot sequence of events, and that act, I always forget his name, the guy that plays Homelander. Anyone who saw Banshee,
Anthony Starr.
There you go. In Banshee, there's a lot of adult content in that show, and he's in most of those scenes. I mean, I guess that's just his career. Banshee was on Cinemax, if you didn't know. But this scene reminded me of a lot of that kind of stuff as far as that kind of content. But besides that, the spectacle of their romance, these two are now they're partners. They're together, and that is very dangerous. You have two of the most powerful supervillains. I call them instinctively. Yeah, they're supervillains in their world, perceived as superheroes. These two characters are now an item. They're together. And what does that mean? Now, I wonder if they'll be open about their relationship. Will this be part of their marketing? Hey, they're a couple, or will that just be underneath? I don't know. We'll find out in the next episode, I'm sure. What does that spell for the future of this, 3 more episodes? Where's this going to lead?
I wonder if they're going to get Cyclops into the mix and see if he can laser her boobs, or if it's just going to be Homelander from now on.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that scene, and it's the sort of thing that we've seen his eye lasers cut through planes and people and all kinds of crap. You know, the fact that it didn't even make a dent on her. There was a little bit of discoloration, but that's all.
Yes.
Brings up the question: who's more powerful here?
Obviously, the show's doing its own thing. I'll say in the comics, they're both almost equal. They're very powerful, but Stormfront has a weakness. I'll say, and I'll leave it at that. Stormfront has a specific weakness. Now, whether, like I said, I don't know. The show's been doing a lot of different shit with Stormfront, so I don't know what they're gonna do.
I think her weakness is volcanoes. So like, as long as,
but no, you're
you
right.
don't have Volcano Man.
She's weakened by racial harmony.
Everybody, it's like the end of Elf. Everybody starts like singing together, and like they start believing, and she dies. But I do think that, like you said, Brian, them kind of starting to work together I think that we're going to have to find out which direction they go, because Stormfront has gone basically against Vought. Now, I don't know if that's because discourse sometimes strengthens people's resolve. So I don't know if she's working with Vought to kind of sow this unrest so that they get stronger, or if it's, on somebody else's behalf to basically fuck Vought over. I don't know, but getting Homelander on board, I think that, the line in the sand's about to be drawn, and we're going to see who ends up on which side. And does that mean that Black Noir is going to have to be, teamed up with Starlight against them, or vice versa? Is Starlight going to have to find a couple other people, with Maeve and the Deep, who's really not all that formidable, but like, I don't know who's going to be on whose side here shortly. That to me is the most interesting part.
Any more thoughts on that, Larry? Or
Well, yeah, it's hard to say where it's going to go and where those lines in the sand are going to be drawn. But things are definitely kind of coming to a head here. And as I've mentioned before, we see how Homelander reacts when he's being played, and I'm pretty darn sure he was aware from day one that he was being played when she's like, no, I actually like you, and yet I'm smearing you on social media in order to make you dependent on me. He's aware of that. Vought's played that game with him since the day he was born, and he caught them in it doing that in season 1. So I think end of the season, we're going to see Homelander's play on this, or at least some hints of it. As far as Starlight, it's kind of hard to say where her storyline's going to go, because there's so many different directions it could go. There's a lot of people ignoring a lot of conflicts of interest with her. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Well, I think that Stormfront on purpose kind of showed Homelander that she's as strong as him.
Yeah. I think that too,
was intentional.
And I think that was a thing that he was definitely paying attention to as well. And I think while he played alone for this scene, and he had his fun towards the end of this episode, like they both did, I think deep down he's very, very pissed about that. And I think we'll see that play out as well, because the part of how he controlled this 7 was through how powerful he is.
Yeah,
and I think he hates the idea of anything that threatens his level of control.
like I said before, I thought it was a fantastic episode. Really excited for the next 3. I am personally glad they're releasing. I know some people are mad, but I'm glad that they're releasing one per week. I almost wish the first 3 hadn't dropped when they did. Maybe they should have only did 2.
Right.
But it is what it is, and like I said, look forward to the next 3 weeks. Anything else, guys, before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I just want to say that Banshee is, because we've referenced it twice now, it's sort of an action drama, and it's worth checking out. I believe it's on Amazon Prime for free.
Nope.
No, it's not free.
It was.
It's
been taken
now
down.
You gotta get stars or something.
Yeah, it was swapped to another. real quick.
I
And then
watched season 1 while it was on Prime, and then I went to watch season 2, and it was, if you add on Cinemax or whatever it was,
So
you can watch, and I'm like, damn it.
this is way off topic, but real quick before we leave, one of the issues right now with streaming media, and might as well talk about because everything we watch is streamed, that we review on here, is now shows and films are being traded, pulled. You could have, The Crow, for instance, was on Netflix, and cool, I can watch The Crow, but they've just pulled it, and so I went to check to see where it was streaming. Nowhere. So I'm like, why the hell isn't it streaming anywhere? Well, they're releasing a Blu-ray later this month, so I'm assuming that once the Blu-ray comes out, they'll wait a while, and then it'll jump back on one of the streaming services. Point being, just because there's some outside of an original, obviously The Boys is an Amazon original, so that's where its home is, unless Amazon sells, one day, it's streaming. But entertainment, that's one of the arguments for physical media still, is that at the end of the day,
You don't own it.
you don't own it, But yeah, Banshee is really good. If you can hunt it down now.
Yeah, check that out. If you're enjoying The Boys and all the twists and turns in The Boys, you'll probably enjoy Banshee.
Now Banshee is turned up to 11. Like, you think The
Oh,
Boys
God.
is graphic? No. Banshee is an extreme viewing experience, not for the faint of heart. I mean, it's shocking what they do on Banshee, but highly enjoyed. If you like action, if you like old pulpy shit like we do, watch Banshee. We should do a Banshee thing.
Yeah,
So-
dude,
I'm
do a
down.
Banshee retrospective. Absolutely.
But all right, anything else, guys?
I don't think so.
That's it.
Later today, this is going up on a Sunday, Lovecraft Country. We'll be reviewing that immediately after it goes off air. Check that out. We're doing Raised by Wolves. As you see, we're doing The Boys. We're talking about possibly doing Fargo. Still hadn't settled that, but we're talking about it. I know it starts in like a week. A lot of content coming in October. Plenty coming to the channel. Subscribe if you haven't, and thank you.
Bye.
Bye.